Okay, good morning. Welcome to the Daniel S. Loeb Torah Center. We have the return of Yaakov Avinu to Eretz Yisrael, Baruch Hashem, after many, many years, decades of being outside, living with his uncle Lavan, being tricked in business, in his financial matters, in his family matters. Lavan was the one who switched the sisters, if you remember. So he really suffered greatly, but at the same time became hugely successful when it came to his family and his success as an individual, and he makes his way back to Eretz Yisrael. However, he's got to deal with a hurdle, and the hurdle is Esav. Esav, we know, wanted more than anything else to destroy Yaakov Avinu. What exactly gave it away? What gave away to Yaakov that after all this time, Esav was still angry, still upset about the fact that he had disguised himself, taken a bracha, bought it, taken the land? What exactly was it? The Parsha does not seem to tell us explicitly why Yaakov suspected, correctly by the way, that his brother Esav still held anger and vengeful thoughts against him. But actually, it does in a hinted manner. It says that Yaakov sent angels to visit Esav Achiv, Arsa Seir, Tzedei Edom, in the land of Seir, on the field of Edom. That is very precise geographical locations over here. Why exactly do we need to know in such detail precisely where Esav is residing? So these names that Esav gave these lands that he lived in were actually reminiscent of how angry he still was at Yaakov for taking the barachot. He says, Arsa Seir, place of Seir, because Seir refers to the fact that he took his birthright from him. Stay Edom was the fact that he took the red, right? He disguised himself and he took a bottle of red lentils to buy the birthright. So he named the country he lived in against Yaakov. He named the field he lived in against Yaakov. The Torah mentions as if to say, he still hates you. Right? I'm living in a country that hates you. I've named the country that. I've named my geographical location over here to the fact that I still want to take revenge against you. So he built up his entire environment to constantly remind himself that I'm going to take nekama, revenge against Yaakov Avinu, my twin brother. There was a tradition that was handed down to Yaakov Avinu that he would die on the same day as his twin brother Esav. Now, this was actually going to be beneficial to Yaakov Avinu. Why? Why would this help him? Because when he thought about protecting himself against the advancing army, 400 armed men, skilled warriors, who were coming with Esav against him, he knew that if he divided the camp into two separate places, he understood that if Esav ended up killing him, he knew full well that he would get killed as well, and the second camp would be able to escape. So everything that Yaakov does over here is a strategy. And by the way, you should know something. The strategy that Yaakov Avinu is using in order to protect himself and his family against the advancing army of Esav has been studied again and again by Jewish people and communities for thousands of years who found themselves up against descendants of Esav who want to kill them. Before they would go and meet with the various popes or priests or people who want to destroy them, of which there have been plenty, or the landowners, they would sit and they would study Parshat Vayishlach. And in the merit of it, and maybe there'd be hints inside it of how to deal with our enemies. Because there is a plan that Yaakov lays out in order to deal with Esav. And it is a 3-part strategy. And each one has its own genius merits. What is the 3-phase strategy that Yaakov creates in order to deal with his brother Esav, who's coming to attack him? So number one was gifts. He knew Esav had an eye for materialism. So he said, first I'm going to do is I'm going to try to appease him. Before I go to war against my enemies, I want to appease him, and I want to be able to defend my family by giving him plenty of gifts in order to prevent him from hating me and wanting to destroy me. So that's number one. Doron. Doron, it's actually a beautiful Hebrew name, means gifts. And he said, I'm going to gift the hatred out of him. And by the way, when we say gifts, it wasn't a box of chocolates or some flowers. He sent him a vast amount of wealth, so much so that he was even willing to give him all of his financial gain from all those many, many years in order to protect himself and his family. He invested a vast amount of wealth, and he didn't just do it in any fashion. He didn't just have one Amazon delivery dropping off a vast amount. He did it eder. Para, para. Shway, shway. Right? Piece by piece. Because he knew that the eye of Esav enjoyed seeing these things. And then there was a gap. And then more. And then there's a gap, right? When you want to give someone a lot of gifts, you don't just load them up. You take it slowly, one day at a time, one night at a time. 8 days of Hanukkah coming up. You don't just give all the gifts on the first night. You spread it out a little bit. You stretch it out a little bit. That is the eye of Esav, who he knew appreciated that. After that, he prayed tefillah. What? Well, he gives the gifts and then he prays? Joey, isn't that the wrong order? You give gifts and then you pray? First of all, say, please, Hashem, protect me. I'm going to give some gifts. And then I'll prepare for war, which was phase 3 of his strategy. Why did he pray second before he gave these gifts? Shouldn't tefillah, prayer, come before everything else? It's a great question, right? It's a very, very deep question. I was bothered by this. And then on Shabbat, I was in a Bet Knesset, I was just telling you, I was in a Bet Knesset, and I read a Chumash that I don't usually read, and it gave a following beautiful answer. And it's not just a beautiful answer, I believe it to be true. And it goes like this. Prayer is very, very effective. It is one very effective strategy that we use. It's a string in our bow in order to allow us to protect ourselves, defeat our enemies, become successful. But there are other strategies which are also very important, which don't show that we don't believe in Hashem. We know them collectively as hishtadlut, taking our effort. But even those efforts that we take, building an army, giving gifts, are also part of us praising Hashem. So when he gave those gifts, he wasn't diverting Hashem like, you know what, Hashem, you stay out of this. You stay out of this because you put me in this whole situation in the first place. So let me give some gifts. Okay, Hashem, you're part of it, let me pray. When he gave the gifts, he was saying, Hashem, I'm giving these gifts in order to appease my brother. I'm trying to pay him off. And by the way, this tradition of paying off our enemies in order to protect ourselves is an ancient tradition and shouldn't be like a sign of submission in any way, shape, or form. I'm thinking during the Second World War of a very great rabbi who went through Gehenom in this earth, Rabbi Weissmandl. He was a rabbi who was famous in the Jewish and non-Jewish world of buying off Nazis in order to rescue Jewish men, women, and children. And he went through tremendous pain and sorrow to raise money. There were actually cartoons in non-Jewish papers of Rabbi Weissmandl with a cannon full of cash that will shoot out in order to give money to the Nazis who were collected so that they would free our people. Now, many times he would collect money and he would give money and they would take the money and they would kill the Jews anyway. But there were occasions when it worked. Many of the Nazis in Machshman were very pragmatic. They weren't so ideological. They were in it for the money. They were in it for the paintings, for the gold. And we know about this. Everyone's seen the movies and documentaries on this. And that's all they wanted. And he bought into that. And just like Yaakov appeased Esav with money, cash, and profit, so too Rabbi Weissmandl was able, by the way, at the end of his life, he felt like he failed completely. Right? He says, I could have raised a lot more money. I could have done a lot more to save my people. He really was a broken person. He lost his family. Terrible, terrible. I mean, he has descendants. Some of them actually live in my neighborhood, right? With the same name. He tried so hard. He did save, and we all know that even saving one life is worth it. This tradition of paying off people in order to rescue a Jewish life, come on. What is a Jewish life worth? Right? For us, the Jewish people, every single neshama is kadosh. And if it means, like Yaakov Avinu, paying him off in order to save, then that's worth it. That is absolutely 1,000% worth it. And Yaakov was afraid. And there's a double expression that is used in the pasuk to describe his fear. V'yira Yaakov ma'od v'yetzer lo. He was afraid, but he was also disturbed. A double lashon, said the rabbi. A very famous Rashi on this. Comes from the Midrash Rabbah. He was afraid he'd be killed. He was going to be killed. But yetzer lo. But you know what really disturbed him? That he would kill others. This was worse to him. So I know online, you look at the Jewish people, they're murderers and genocide, complete drivel and nonsense, right, pushed by non-Jews and unfortunately many Jews as well. And even our future mayor in New York has intimated this, that we are guilty of genocide. You should know that we have a tradition, that we don't want to be killed, and therefore we're going to build armies to defend ourselves. It's the Israel Defense Forces, IDF. We're there to defend ourselves. We're not going like lambs to the slaughter anymore. But you know what even disturbs us more than us dying? That we're going to have to kill other people. That is in essence the Jewish neshama, the Jewish soul. Not only do not want to die, I don't even want to have to kill other people. And so that was his third and final strategy of three things in order to protect himself when he had to deal with Esav, his twin brother. Okay, by the way, as a side point, Esav did not want the stuff. He didn't want it. He said, I don't need everything you're giving me. Yeshli rov. Yeshli rov, I don't need his stuff. Esav became extremely wealthy. I mean, he had an army of 400 people that he financed himself. He became extremely wealthy from the brachot of his father, Yitzchak. So he says, you keep your gifts. Yaakov responded to him, you may have rov, but I have kol. I have everything. So keep it. These two statements are actually two ideologies. There are the people who are yeshli rov, and there are people who are the yeshli kol. I have lots, I have everything. What is the difference between I have lots, rov, and I have everything? Beautiful idea. There are people who say I have lots, but if I have lots, I can have lots more. They are never satisfied with what they have. Their eye always wants more, and that is Esav, and the people who follow the school of Esav. But there are the Jewish people and others who say, Yeshli kol, I have everything. He didn't have everything. That's a lie. There's a lot more. I have everything I need. I'm satisfied with what I have. And when Yaakov was poor, of which he was, because he had to pay off Eliphaz who wanted to kill him, right? He said, I have lots, but I have everything that I need. And now he became extremely wealthy. He said the same statement with the same attitude. He says, I don't need it, Esav. Keep your stuff because everything I need right now. That is the attitude between Yaakov and Esav. Those are two worlds of thoughts. Of do you have lots and therefore want lots more? Or do you have everything that I need? So now Yaakov has to fight Esav. He has to fight him. But before the physical fight happens, he has to have a spiritual battle with the Sar of Esav, with the angel of Esav, who appears to him at nighttime, because that is the domain. Nighttime is the domain of Esav. Also Yaakov in the positive, right? Because we know he slept. At nighttime, the prophecy came to him of the ladder at nighttime as well. So this is a nighttime battle between Yaakov and the angel of Esav. By the way, how do we know it's an angel? Who says it's an angel? It doesn't tell us it's an angel. What does it call this individual that Yaakov is fighting with? It calls him the Ish, the man. V'yavavek Ish imo ad olot hashachar, until the morning. Ish means a man, doesn't it? So how do we know it's an angel? It's accepted, right? Throughout rabbinic literature, even the Goyim, they make statues of this, and they make paintings of Yaakov fighting an angel. The word Ish is a code name. They're absolutely correct. A code name for angels. The Rambam tells us in Hilchot Yesodei HaTorah, Foundations of the Torah, chapter 2, halacha 7, that there are 10 levels of angels that exist. The highest of them is called the Chayot HaKodesh, the holy living angels that give power to the other 7. But there are also Relim, there are also Chashmalim, there are also Seraphim, right? He actually used that word, Seraphim. That actually comes from the Pesach Haggadah, right? The Sarfei Kodesh, we say, right? Ani v'lo malach, ani v'lo saraf. So Saraf refers to a fiery angel. That's low down. The lowest, says the Rambam, of all 10 are what he calls the Ishim. The Ishim. Ishim means the human ones. There are human angels? And the answer is they're angels, but they're so close to humans that they're the ones that communicate to the prophets in order to give over their information. This Ish was the one that Yaakov Avinu was able to connect to in order to defeat Esav, who he was about to meet the next day. And so Ish is a code name for a malach, the lowest level. And when Yaakov fought Esav, he started with his spiritual roots of dealing with this malach, this Ish angel, this lowest level of angel that exists in order to defeat him. The Gemara says in Chulin something unbelievable, that the angel appeared to him as a person. So calling him an Ish is also fair. But the Gemara gives the weirdest description of two possibilities of how the angel of Esav appeared to him. According to one opinion, it appeared to him as an idol worshipper, as an avodah zarah, as an idol worshipper. There's another opinion that the angel of Esav appeared to him as a big Talmid Chacham, as a Torah sage. That's a big discrepancy, isn't it? That's a big difference over there. The angel appeared as a angel in the form of a avodah zarah, and one opinion says no, as a Torah sage. Well, which one is it? And how can you appear as both, according to those two opinions? So the rabbi says something very interesting. They say that the Yetzer Hara, which is what really this angel was, of Esav, which is one of the worst Yetzer Hara that we have, appeared to him as an idol worshipper, because sometimes your Yetzer Hara comes to you as a bad thing. Something you can clearly see and define as evil. Evil will sometimes reveal itself to you very clearly and say, I hate Jews, I want to kill you. These are the anti-Semites who are marching, right, here in New York against the Jews, or in France, right, the Shias who say, we don't like Jews. You're the source of all our problems, we want to kill you. There is an advantage to that, because better the enemy you know. You know exactly, precisely what that enemy wants to do, and that is to kill you. Okay, they'll say, we don't want to kill you, we just don't want you here in our land, we don't want you in Israel. They'll come and they'll coat it with sugar and sweetness, but in the end, make no mistakes, if you die, whether at their hand or the people they're funding, they have no problem with that. But there is a certain safety that comes with it. That is the Haman, Yetzer Hara, that says it up straight. But there is another type of Yetzer Hara, which is more treacherous, more insidious. And that is the Yetzer Hara that appears to you as a Torah sage, and says that I am kosher, I'm here to help you, and will lure you into doing things that are totally against your own benefit, your own self-worth, but comes to you as a mitzvah, as a Torah sage. Sometimes literally a Torah sage. Or sometimes they will cloak themselves with kosher robes and say that we're here to help you, and will lead you down to a path of absolute destruction. You know, I had to take a taxi a few days ago, and the driver was a young Jewish man who is married with a few kids. There's a a Jewish taxi service I use, try to give them paranasa, although they charge a little bit more. It's worth the investment. And guy comes to pick me up, and he has a very thick accent. I said, "Where are you from? Are you Israeli?" He says, "No." I said, "Are you South America?" He goes, "No, I'm born here." I said, "But where's your accent from?" So he said that he grew up in Borough Park, or Williamsburg, I think Williamsburg, and he didn't speak a word of English till he was 21 years old. Didn't learn a single word. You know, there's people out there who don't learn, and they speak everything in Yiddish. Every single conversation. They don't learn English at all. At all. Happens to be, I don't have a problem with that. Whatever it is what it is. I don't want to tell you. But it happens to be that he was part of a cult, and I'm using that word advisedly. By the way, I'm going to define what a cult is. A cult has 3 traits. So you know to recognize whether you're in one or not. And I use this checklist to help many, many people. Number 1, there is a sect that has total monopoly on the truth. That's number 1. They have monopoly on the truth. Number 2, they have a very charismatic leader. That's number 2, with tremendous charisma. This is always. And number 3, this leader and his followers are doing these things and taking control of you because they want money or other physical pleasures for themselves. If it has those 3 traits, I have some bad news for you. You're in a cult. Monopoly on the truth, charismatic leader, and they want money or success. So be very careful, because within the world today, there are many, many such cults of charismatic leaders who are running churches, who are running mosques, who are running synagogues, who have those 3 traits. If the person, monopoly on the truth, we have, that's Torah, monopoly on the truth. Charismatic leader, there are many charismatic leaders. But what is their motivation? If their motivation is to enhance their own pocket, and that's it, then you're dealing with a cult. By the way, this is how the Shulchan Aruch actually describes what a cult actually is. This individual, this driver who I had, was the sweetest boy. When he described to me, I don't think he was even aware of it, what he had gone through of this sect within a sect. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to name them. Sect within a sect. It was an absolute cult. It took him years to deprogram. It took many people. I know what you're all thinking. This wouldn't happen to me. I'm smarter than that. I would never be taken. And this is for the weak-minded individuals who come along and want to suck you into their orbit, right, of success. My friends, you would fall for it too. There have been cults throughout history. In the days of Moshe Rabbeinu, there was a cult called Korach. That was a cult, right? Make no mistake, this person was there for his own. Now, he had a lot of money, right? He was happy to take more, but even his followers who joined him, it was all there for his personal kavod, honor, personal success. So we've been dealing with these cults for a long, long, long time. You have to be very, very, very wary of this. And that is exactly what this young boy was telling me when he described what he had gone through. Getting out took him years. I mean, I'll add another piece over. He told me he was married off at 16 years old. 16, right? I'm not sure if that's legal in this state. There are states in America where it is legal, but he was married off at 16. He got divorced within a few months, but he had a kid anyway. I mean, the life that this individual has. All of this, my friends, is indicative of people in the world of Esav who are there for their own personal kavod, their own personal honor, in order to lift themselves up. I just want to point out just one small thing over here. Yaakov got into a fight with the sire of Esav because he had left town, left his family, because he had left pachim ketanim, little jars that he left at home. Why is he leaving? He was wealthy. Why would he leave his family? And that led to his fight with the sire of this angel of Esav. Why would he leave his family in order to pick up jars, pachim katanim. What is that about? So the rabbis tell us you learn a lesson from this, and that is that whatever you have in your physical possessions, all the brachot, whether it's a vast or a little, every single one of them is there for a purpose. Every object you own, down to the little small jars, are with you for a purpose and need a tikkun. And that is why Yaakov Avinu went back. He's like, if Hashem blessed me with small jars, there must be a reason why I had them and I left them behind, because he's schlepping back home. He had a wife and kids. I'm not sure why he left them behind. It was all for Min HaShemayim, because he had to go meet up with the Sar of Esav. And therefore, even this jar, this blessing of a small jar, is great enough that I need to go back and retrieve it, because that's something I need to do in order to fulfill my mission with this one small jar. Nowadays, we live in the disposable culture, right? And I'm part of it too. You have a jar, you have whatever it is, you use it, you throw it away, you get a new one. Yaakov is telling you that all the brachot you have, your bed, your clothing, everything you have is there for a purpose and needs to be used for the good as well. Okay? So that is the fight of Yaakov. At the end of this battle, and we'll finish with this, Yaakov was blessed and given a new name. Now, usually when a new name is given, the old one is put into retirement. Sarai becomes Sarah. No more Sarai, only Sarah. Avram is Avraham. No more Avram, only Avraham. That's always the way. Hosea becomes Yehoshua. His old name is retired. When it comes to Yaakov, his old name was not retired. It was needed. And name was added. And that was Yisrael. So now he's Yaakov and he's Yisrael. This is the only time that I know of where the old name is not retired and a new name is added in addition as an alternative. What do these two names represent? Yaakov represents the physical, right? Yaakov, Ekev, the heel. It's the heel. That represents the physical body, the guf, the financial success that Yaakov and his descendants are going to need in order to be successful in Olam Hazeh. So what is Yisrael? Now there's a spiritual mission. And the angel of Esav gave it to him, as if to say that now you are going to be Yisrael, the Yashar El, straight to Hashem. There are no intermediaries. There is no partnership. You see, the original plan A, which did not actually come to being, was that Esav was going to be the physical success and give Yaakov the financial means to become a successful individual. That was plan A. Esav opted, and by the way, Yaakov tried on the way back. He tried to lure Esav back and say, come join me, become my partner. Let's do it. You'll be so much more successful in Olam Hazeh, Olam Haba. That's why Yaakov got into trouble for not offering Dinah, his daughter, to Esav. Because Dinah could have flipped him around and made it part of the family. Yaakov didn't want this, so he hid away Dinah. He was actually told off, he was castigated for that. He should have been willing to give up Dinah, who could have turned Esav to the good, but he didn't do it. Why would he be in trouble for that? It's his beautiful daughter, Dinah. He wants to give to Esav, the Rasha. And the answer is because really, Esav could have done teshuvah. It was a far shot. It was left field, but it could have happened. And so Yaakov Avinu now has a problem. He hasn't got a partner. A twin brother is going to do it. What's going to happen? We're going to have to find financial resources within the Jewish world to support our spiritual efforts, like Yisachar and Zevulun. Zevulun were ship makers, builders, and what's the word? They were out there in the ports, sailors, and Yaakov and Zevulun rather would sit and study Torah. This was not plan. This is plan B. We're stuck with this in Olam Hazeh because Esav opted out. And that's why every Jewish organization has fundraisers. And that's why every rabbi has to go fundraising. Not for himself, chas v'lila, but in order to build up the community. Because Esav says, I'm out. But we're going to get to a world, my dear friends, where this is going to change. We're going to get to a world where making financial success is going to become very easy when Mashiach comes. That, I believe, is why we're seeing the whole AI revolution come into the fore. People are terrified. You look at online, people are terrified. We're not going to have jobs anymore. People aren't going to work. What are they going to do? We, the Jewish people, should be saying, oh, I can't wait. We're going to find ways to support ourselves, to use this amazing technology to enhance our lives so that we can spend more of our time in spiritual endeavors, on taking care of each other in spiritual ways, on helping the sick, on helping our families and our communities so that we don't have to deal with the treachery of making a living anymore, because it comes with a cost. So actually, although Esav went out and removed himself, maybe the AI revolution is really the recapturing of the original deal that we, B'nai Esav, the B'nai Yisrael, will be able now to finally indulge ourselves safely in our homeland with Mashiach in spiritual matters exclusively, or more prominently, God willing, Bezrat Hashem. Have a great successful day.